Hello everybody, we're back again for episode 57. What are we talking about today, Victoria?
You have to introduce yourself.
Oh, yes, you're right. I'm Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltisner.
Hey, I'm Victoria.
Your face might have been out of frame once I combined the video together.
Darn it!
I hope not. I always hate that. I always make these big arm gestures because I can see myself on the wide screen being filmed. And then when I do the split screen of us together in iMovie, I realize that the 2/3 of the time at least, my hand gestures are cut off by you and the right edge of the screen. Okay. So,
party on the right side.
what are we talking about today?
We are reviewing The Cure Part 1 and First Love.
You're on the left side, Victoria. I get cut off by you on the left side and the right side of the screen.
No.
Yeah.
I don't know what side I'm on.
Yes, The Cure Part 1.
I'm on blue team. You're on red team.
Yeah. Cure Part 1 and First Love. Why did we pick these episodes, Victoria?
Jeff Lewis!
Jeff Lewis!
My window's open. Everyone in the town can hear me.
Yeah, spoiler to people living on 10th Avenue in case you haven't heard The Cure Part 1 yet.
Jeff's in it! I
Jeff
totally
Lewis.
trolled you, Devin.
You fooled me. Jennifer fooled me.
Should we give them backstory for those who haven't seen the past couple
Intentionally not.
episodes? Or just make them go back and watch the past couple episodes?
Victoria, I thought that I saw that Jeff Lewis was in the episode. And so I was like, yeah, Jeff Lewis, we'll pick the First Love to do with the review.
So Devin told me, and he got me super psyched up, and I started listening to The Cure Part 1. And for those of you who have heard The Cure Part 1...
Which should be everyone, because you're listening to this.
Yeah, I still have to give the episode summary for it.
Yes.
Should I just do that right now?
Finish your story first.
Okay. So I was halfway through the episode, and I'm like, oh man, Jeff hasn't appeared yet. And then I just sent Devin a message on Skype, and I was like, are you sure Jeff is in The Cure? And then a couple minutes pass, and I'm like, because I don't think he's in this. And then Devin's like, I thought he was. And like, no spoilers, Victoria. And then it was a couple minutes later, and there's only like 5 minutes left or something like that. And then I was like, okay, yeah, I don't think Jeff's in this. And Devin's was like, don't tell me. Shh. I'm making you sound like Caboose and Joel, and I don't know why.
I will happily accept that.
And so then, like, of course, after I send Devin that message, Jeff appears, and I get super excited. And I'm like, oh, man, I can't say, like, oh, never mind.
You just talked about Caboose, so when you just said Jeff appears, I totally thought of Jeff Ramsey, and I was like, oh, yeah.
What?
J, not G.
So then Jeff Lewis appears. Say it in Jeff Ramsey's voice. Jeff Lewis! So Jeff appears, and I got super psyched, but of course I can't send Devin a message saying, like, oh, Jeff is here, because spoilers. So then I'm just like, I didn't tell Devin that Jeff appeared in the episode at all.
And then someone else made a comment, whether or not it was intentionally meant to trick me or not, was like, was Jeff in that one? I'll have to re-listen to it and see if he was in there or not. So I was like, okay, I guess he's not in it. Whatever. First Love still works, because this is our February review episode, Valentine's Day First Love. That still fits. Oops. And then he was in it. So let's get started.
And Devin just, like, was listening to... Devin's like, okay, I'm listening to The Cure. And then, like, 20 minutes... Like 60 minutes later, he sends me a message, all caps over Skype. Jeff is in this, you liar! And I'm like, I never told you he wasn't.
She got me. So, episode
766,
The Cure, Part 1, first 3-parter of the Odyssey Adventure Club. And we haven't even had a 2-parter yet, have we? Oh wait, yes we did. The launch, sorry.
Yeah.
But 3-parter. So, it was written by Dave Arnold. What happens in it, Victoria?
So, in this episode, Wooton goes back to his home and native land, although it's not in Canada anymore. He goes to Alaska.
Which is basically part of Canada.
They totally tease us with stuff about Wooton's family, but they never actually show Wooton's family, which I'll talk about that later.
The description,
anyway. So, then Wooton sees someone who he knew in school when he was younger, who is now a Christian, and then they do a ministry thing and then they go on a trip together, and there's this kid who has depression, and his father picks on him, and he goes on the plane that Jeff Lewis is driving while they go off to a tribe to minister to them. And this is all while the dog sled race, but I can't remember what it's
I was
called,
about to say, the Iditarod does
on.
play a minor role in this episode, too. You might want to mention that.
Yeah, that's what it's about.
All
Don't
right.
understand it. I don't either.
That's one way of describing it. Okay.
So first things first, Wooton's family. They mentioned Wooton's family multiple times.
And he said he visited his parents.
Yes,
Plural.
I noticed that was the first thing I picked up in the episode, because Devin always had this theory about Wooton's mom
We'll
being
get to
dead.
it. No, I didn't
And
say she
so
was
then-
dead.
Oh, I thought your theory was that Wooton's mom was dead.
She could
so
be
then
dead,
I heard
or she
the
might
episode.
not be.
I started jumping up in the air and flailing around my arms. I'm like, Wooton has both parents. Oh my gosh.
We're going to do a headcanon episode eventually about my theories about Wooton's mother. But
You're going to do a headcanon
well,
episode.
yes, that's what I mean. We as the collective Oddcast, me personally. So, yeah,
You're using the royal we.
Yes, exactly. Which is a reference to what my headcanon's about.
I forgot about it. Yeah, I guess so.
So, yeah, that confirms that Wooton's mom is still alive, despite the fact that we know absolutely nothing about her and never heard mention of her up until now. I'm so glad that I knew we knew, Wooton's going to Alaska. We have to have acknowledgement of his family, but I was really thinking we were going to, because we've been really, we've been lacking a lot more in continuity stuff pre-hiatus ever since then. It's been getting better and better, but I wasn't expecting it, so I was super happy about that. Also, we learned a ton.
I want Wellington to appear.
Yeah, we learn a lot more, I'd say, about Wooton's past. He lived in Willow, Alaska, during his middle school years, and we know that we already knew that his grandfather's mansion was in Anchorage, or at least very close enough to it, because Bernard and Wooton flew into Anchorage International Airport and then took a limo the rest of the way, so it's close by there.
I feel so bad for Wooton, but I'll talk about that more later.
I was not at all expecting more than a couple lines max talking about young Wooton, but it was talking about it so much. I was surprised at first to hear that Wooton went to a public school, but thinking about it, sadly, I would not, however, be surprised to learn that
Wellington went to a
public school while Wellington went to a private one.
That probably did happen.
Yeah.
And that's the sad thing.
The coolest thing about this episode, by far, is that Adventures in Odyssey is bringing to light the fact that there is a significant epidemic of juvenile depression in Alaska among Native people, and that they're bringing that issue into the spotlight. Like, talk about like a marginalized issue. So it's super exciting that we're getting to have a 3-part discussion all about this, and about a group that goes around to help provide counseling to depressed and suicidal POC youth in Alaska. Like, oh man, that's so cool.
I really like the new characters that this episode introduced.
Yeah.
Can I just say how bad I feel for Wooton? So we have this kid who grows up, probably doesn't have any friends. The one friend he does, he fights with him all the time, but they still get along pretty well. So
You're talking about the cheeseburger friend?
Yeah. So Wooton talks to Grady about this. Anyway, so then he wants to spend time with his dad. His dad's just like, oh yeah, treehouse.
Well, that was talking to
Commissions
Connie
people
about
to build it. What?
That was in Plan B Part 4 that he talks about the cheeseburger friend.
Right. Anyway, so he doesn't get to spend any time with his dad. His dad doesn't like him. We don't know about his mom. Wellington doesn't like him. Wellington convinced Wooton that they weren't even related. Wellington's the worst
For a year.
ever.
He believed him for a year.
And they're twins. So
yeah, identical twins.
I guess it was kind of Wooton's fault for that one.
Yeah, yes, it was.
Still.
Yeah, that's why I only believed him for a year.
If I actually do have that headcanon now. So they didn't send Wooton to a public or a private school like Wellington. They probably did send him to a public school because they are rich after all. And the only two people that ever cared about Wooton in his entire life growing up in Alaska were his grandparents. So I imagine he spent a lot of time with his grandpa because they have a really good bond going on. And then, like, he goes to Odyssey and he suddenly has all these people who care about him and it's super sweet. And then he finds the love of his life. And then she's just like, no, I'm not a Christian. And then he finds the other love of his life and she's probably going to say no.
And she's in a weird cult.
Yeah. So, poor Wooton. Wooton has, like, one of the most interesting backstories out of all the main characters, if not the most interesting.
I was waiting for that to come back around and tie into this episode specifically, but I guess it was just a general kind of Wooton thing you're going off on.
I feel so bad for Wooton all the time. And he didn't want anyone to know he was a comic book writer, and then they all found out. And
speaking of
all bad things,
his awful parents...
He doesn't deserve it.
He said to, what's his face? Whatever, what's the guy?
His friend, the bully guy.
Will Baccaran, yeah.
Yeah, Will.
Wooton said to him that when he was little that he reminded him of his father. I was like, there are not many worse things that Wooton could say about someone that they remind him of Winslow Bassett.
Yeah. Wait, did he say that regarding Will?
When they were little.
Or regarding the other guy's father? Like the kid's dad.
Oh, yeah, sorry, it wasn't about Will.
Yeah, because I just listened to it.
It was about the Lewis person.
Yeah, and he's like, and he says it like in this
the
really
Lewis
deep
person
voice.
Who
he's like, kind of like my dad. And I heard that, and I'm like, Wooton, no, Wooton,
Okay, but seriously, and this kind of plays into predictions, the charity that they do, the way that they do it, it's such a cool idea, and I really feel like the fact that they go backwards, they start at the end of the Iditarod and work their way backwards is going to be super important, because I'm guessing that Mr. Fancy Winner Lewis Man is going to have some terrible problem, and he's going to get trapped by himself out in the wilderness, and he's going to have to be rescued by the plane that's heading back in the other direction.
Jeff Lewis saves the day.
Yeah. So yeah, Jeff Lewis was here. That's when he came in. And the episode ends. I'm like, I'm so excited for all this. This is amazing. Can't wait to hear part 2.
I was listening to Jeff's voice.
Sorry?
And I'm just like, because you know how Jeff's voice is very distinctive? And I was listening, I'm just like, there's something about your voice that's always seems so familiar to me. And I don't know what it is, but it's just like kind of calming, nice. And I listened to it and I'm just like, oh my gosh. He sounds like Elijah Wood doing the Sigma voice in Red vs. Blue. Like, he sounds exactly like Elijah Wood. And then I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is so weird. Oh, this just makes me love Jeff even more.
Wirt.
Jeff Lewis as Sigma.
As Frodo.
Jeff Lewis as Frodo.
Okay, so my prediction in general is that the storm will trap/injure/strand Logan's dad along the race. And on the way back along the Iditarod track, the plane will find him, and Logan and probably his mom will have this dramatic rescuing moment. And they're like, yeah, I did it. And Wooton's like, yeah, I'm not a creepy stalker after all.
And I think Logan's going to become a Christian. Can I just say that Will's story touched me so much? Just
yes, you can say that.
What do you think?
It was, yeah, I love everything about this episode.
It was such a good episode. I went into it and I'm like, oh yeah, it's another missionary episode. We've already had like 12 of those in the OAC. Oof. And then like, I'm hearing it, I'm like, okay, we had the original 2-parter that was like missionary stuff, and then we had like the other one, and we had like the 12 others, and they're basically all kind of the same, just with a couple twinges. They're different. This one is completely different. Mm-hmm. So I'm just like, tons of new refreshing stuff, new characters, new things we're learning about characters we already know. Jeff Lewis, always welcome to see him. And then like,
and appearing, topics. Jeff Lewis appearing in a non-like chronological album episode, no less.
Yeah. And AIOO talking about new topics which are very pressing in the world today that they've never talked about before. So, like...
Excuse me.
Good episode. 5 out of 5.
Yeah, I mean, we don't rate individual ones in a multi-part one, but I'm sure it will be 5 out of 5 by the end of this.
I think Logan's going to become a Christian.
Yeah. So then we have the documentary, which is really interesting on like an analytical level, not just on the content level. Because this documentary has been a long time coming. Because they basically made this documentary right back when the OAC started. They posted all the pictures on the official Adventures in Odyssey page of them traveling to Alaska to film the documentary and stuff way back in the day. I'm sure it's been
I remember that.
I'm sure it's been at least a year since the team traveled to Alaska to film it. And it's weird because, like Bob said in the episode, he wasn't the OAC producer way back when. It was way before that. So Brock was in all the footage in Alaska.
Brock,
so that
miss you.
Felt kind of strange. It was weird.
Good weird.
Yeah.
Brock is a good weird. Everyone loves Brock.
So yeah, like I was saying, as they're talking more and more about Carry the Cure, like in like a real life setting and stuff like that, I'm like, can I just talk about how much I love Adventures in Odyssey, that they'll do a 3-part episode about a nonprofit organization that brings awareness to the high rates of depression and suicide in Native youth and speaks to them and counsels them. Like,
so if they're nonprofit, who's the money going to?
It goes to help fund the stuff that they do.
Oh, but they're nonprofit.
Yeah, that means that they don't earn money from it. They still need money to come in to pay for the stuff that they do. They just don't keep the money. Nonprofit,
okay.
I think the standard rule for nonprofit organizations is that the organization can't save up money for more than a year, which means all the money donated to you has to be spent by the end of the fiscal year. Other than, the only exception to that, the only money that you can carry over is insurance money that you would need to replace stuff if it got destroyed. Like, for our church, for example, this is how I know this, because we were talking about it once, about the different ways that you can, like, register your church in terms of, like, an organization, is that the way it works for the church is the church gets all the tithes and the offerings and donations and stuff, and the rule is, in order for you to stay as a church and not have to pay taxes with the government, you need to spend all of that money on whatever by the end of the fiscal year. You can't have anything left in your account. It needs to all go towards charity organizations or to missionaries or towards repairs for the building or whatever. You have to figure out some way to get rid of all that money by the end of each year. The only money that you can have left over is like emergency funds to help for insurance, or if something got destroyed and you have to replace it. Okay. So that's how it works. And yeah, I love how much more native representation these episodes and documentaries give, learning about the culture stuff. Characters of other religions, finally, like I was talking about, and stuff.
Yeah, I was going to say that too.
Got lots more learning about that. It was so super cool. We also learned, obviously, about the history of Carry the Cure and the history of the Iditarod, and we also learned about the parts of a dog sled and the roles of the different dogs and stuff. So the real founder of
They're called a pack.
Yes. The real founder of Carry the Cure, his name is Bill Pagaran, who became Will Baccaran in the episode. So this is what it said on the OAC here. It said, "Hey, did you know that as an Odyssey Adventure Club member, you're helping Carry the Cure reach kids up and down the Iditarod Trail? Bill needed 4 new speakers and a digital mixing board, sound equipment vital to the ministry's Committed to Life events. Your monthly support of the club allowed us to meet that need just in time for this year's Iditarod." So all of the membership money for the OAC for February, that is where that went for that.
Yay!
So it was nice because we hear about how it goes to support these organizations the episodes are about. So it's nice when we can find out tangibly, what that actually went towards and how much I was able to give. Really funny. In the discussion questions for the episodes, it says, "Were you surprised to find out that Wooton was bullied in school? Why or why not?" And my answer would have to be no, because Wooton told Colby Cabrera about it in the Popsicle Kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
if it wasn't my height, then it was my weight. If it wasn't my weight, it was my preoccupation
and we can be like,
with mushrooms.
He was talking about Will here.
It's possible.
Yeah. I just want to say Wooton's just like, oh, and Will's like, "I'm so sorry, Wooton." Wooton's like, "Oh, don't feel bad for it. I'm over it. Don't worry." And I'm just like, "Oh, that's nice that you forgave him." And Wooton's just like, "Yeah, I mean, like, hours of drumming and stuff." And I'm just like, "Okay, yeah, you obviously still hold a grudge." And he's just like, "My therapist says I'm over it." And I'm like, "Obviously not."
There was a really sad fact about the Iditarod, which is that in 1988, some absolute idiot entered the Iditarod with a team of poodles who had to be dropped off at checkpoints along the way as their feet froze one by one. And so 2 years after that, they made the rule official that all dogs for the race must be northern breeds, like Siberian Huskies or Alaskan Malamutes.
Why would you do that?
Lighter fact about the dogs, Dave Arnold, who wrote and directed this episode, owns a husky named Lakita. So that became that's one of the dog's names in the episode, and a picture of his dog is also what was used as I believe, the source for one of the dogs for the art for part 1.
So like the one that Wooton's beside?
Yeah, I think there's like 2 or 3 on the cover. One of them, the main.
There are 2.
The main.
I'm looking at right now.
The main one is Dave Arnold's dog.
There's 2 right beside each other, and one's looking into the camera.
The one looking into the camera is Dave's.
Okay, there's one looking off into the distance, so he's like more dramatic.
Like William Shatner.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
Spa.
That's part 1.
I liked it.
I loved it.
It's just a very good episode.
I was so happy with it.
Like, when I first listened to this episode, I listened to Follow Me, and then I listened to this one. So I was just like, good episodes all around.
Confusing, but good.
Yeah, well, the way it worked was I listened to Follow Me, and then I listened to Follow Me again, and then I listened to the Cure Part 1.
Okay, that sounds better.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
There are very few episodes where the theme makes me so pumped up and excited about how awesome it is that I go make posts on Tumblr about it, which is what happened with this one, because I was so stoked. Plus, Wooton, backstory, he's talking to Penny on the phone, so I'm interested.
That was so adorable.
To figure out how this fits into the timeline.
Me too.
I'm assuming it's kind of like Truth Chronicles, where it's kind of like it just vaguely fits in somewhere, but because I mean,
like, ooh, go straight.
Same thing, because right, we talked about how the end of 58 leading into 59 is the same as Connie pushing the button on the inspiration station end of album 50 leading into the beginning of album 51, but we had Passages and the Truth Chronicles in between there, so those just kind of took place in some mysterious, non-chronological place around that
They
point in
took
time.
place in the same reality that Red vs. Blue's PSA is taken.
Exactly. So same thing with the OAC episodes in general, I think. With this, because it bridges right directly from 58 to 59, this one is probably supposed to be before Wooton proposes, I would imagine. It might be. Yeah.
I think it is.
Yeah. Because I'm sure the scene will continue in 59 right from where it left off in 58. So. Because,
like, yeah, it definitely is going to. Like, it's just going to open in 59. It's going to be Penny mid-scream.
Okay, so that's part 1. Awesome sauce. 100%.
And
I said that really awkwardly because I said awesome and then I decided to say awesome sauce. So I was like, awesome sauce.
It's going to be Penny screaming and then she's going to be like, first things first.
But we already did our predictions last time, so.
Yeah, I'm just repeating what I said then. Anyway.
On to First Love. And more Jeff Lewis. Substantially more.
My room just got blue and now my skin is blue too.
Neytiri.
Blue team!
Okay, we'll see you then.
Bye.
Shh. We're back. It's been... Oh, there we go. There's a light.
Yep.
It's been a while since we recorded. You may have noticed my hair's a bit shorter. Terezi shirt. Yay! Roxy hoodie. Yay!
You can't see it.
Homestuck. I can see it. And that's the important thing. Okay, Victoria.
Jareth necklace.
And now we're talking about...
We are talking about our review of First Love.
Yes. Episode 111, written by Paul McCusker.
Polly.
So, Victoria, what's this episode about?
So, in this episode, Connie meets her first love, who is someone named Jeff Lewis.
Jeff Lewis.
Jeff is a very uninteresting and bland character who I don't really think belongs in Odyssey. I don't think he'll be returning, and I'm glad he hasn't yet. It would probably just be a massacre if he did. Anyway... So, Jeff and Connie want to be together. They date for a while, but Connie ultimately breaks up with him because he is not a Christian. And that's basically the episode.
Yep. So, to take it from the top.
Before we start, I just want to reiterate the point that I don't think Jeff should ever come back to the show.
Agreed. Thank you for...
He's a terrible character. He's very... I just don't like him at all.
So, I feel like it is worth pointing out, this is the only episode that ever uses this particular intro for Adventures in Odyssey, with a teaser with Chris at the beginning, like with clips from the episode cut together, and Chris going, here's just a sampling of what you'll hear on today's Adventures in Odyssey. And obviously this, the idea would become a regular feature in later themes of, having a little preview from a bunch of short clips cut together from the episode. But this is the only one that has this particular style, and it happens way before it becomes a regular thing. So
really?
Yeah.
I never noticed that.
I wonder if the original broadcast had this beginning, or if they added it for the Gold Audio series later on.
I don't know.
It's a mystery.
I don't have any problems with the intro.
No, I don't have a problem. I just think it's an interesting point of trivia, which are things that we like here. I think it's hilarious that the first episode about Connie and romance, which is this episode, has two young couples in it, and Steve Burns is in the one that's not with Connie.
I know.
I never noticed it until this listen through. Like, I didn't really think about it before. But we have Connie and Jeff, and then we have...
Marcia and...
It's not Marcia.
Someone.
Is it Marcy? It's not Marcy, is it?
It's
what's her face?
Marcy.
The one from Go Ye Therefore and A is for Attitude.
Marcia.
Anyways,
her name
yeah,
Marcia?
She's dating Steve Burns, which is really funny. So, especially when you think about the fact that Connie was introduced to Jeff by Mitch. Like...
Even Mitch ships them, guys.
He set himself up to fail.
Canon.
Mitch is the one who introduced Connie to Jeff. That is beyond funny. Okay, so one of the things that is one of the things that I find really important about this episode is how perfect of a guy Jeff is, apart from his lack of faith. And I know that Kathy may have designed her ideal man with Mitch, that she was building her dream man, but she was not the first person to do that.
This is Paul's dream man.
Exactly. Jeff is a great guy with his Mac Mason secret agent decoder ring and his super sports skills and his desire to do whatever he has to do to be with Connie. He even asks her permission before he kisses her the first time.
I know, he's so adorable.
Paul McCusker made Jeff Lewis as good as he could be, except for him being a Christian, to nail home how difficult Connie's choice was here, and to emphasize the point that without Jesus, no other amount of perfection on every other aspect can make up for that. It's the same thing that happened.
And he's a pilot in the future. He's just the entire package.
It's the same thing that happened with Victoria Jameson in Wooing Wooton in album 49. I'm pretty sure it's 49. Fortunately, Wooton waited, and then he met Penny, who just like
49.
Just like Connie waited, and now Jeff's Christian. Sorry?
It was 49, yeah. You're right.
Just like Connie waited, and then now Jeff is a Christian. Every time I listen to the episode, it gets me about how Jeff got an entire tiny house to himself that's fully equipped and everything for getting straight A's one time. How rich are his parents?
I really enjoy this episode, although I'm gonna have to bash it a little bit, and it's not the episode's fault at all. It is a very good, well-written episode with a good moral and great presentation, but this is the first time I've come back to it since Jeff returned to the show, and lots of things kind of lose their impact if you know that he's going to return to the show in the future. I mean, if you don't know that and you listen to it, you're like, this is a really good episode. And I'm sure tons of people who have listened to both episodes, like ones with Jeff nowadays and ones like First Love. I bet lots of people still haven't made the connection or realized it was like, oh yeah, that was you or whatever.
I think people probably have.
Well, I mean, like, there's probably some people who haven't.
Well, I'm sure there's some.
But I don't know. I was just listening to it a second time because every time I've listened to it before he came back to the show, I'm like, Connie, you're making the right choice and stuff. But going back to it, I found myself rooting them on to be together, and I felt so conflicted. I felt so terrible, and I'm like, no, Victoria, they're not supposed to be together. And I'm like, but I want them to be together. It's like, no, you want their future selves to be together.
Well,
shush.
Yeah, they still shouldn't have been together at that point.
Yeah, I know.
It's the same thing with Eugene and Katrina.
I know. But I'm just saying it's really weird listening to it again now. I don't know, did you think the same thing?
Well,
I just thought it left more of an impact, the fact that she never met him ever again. She doesn't know what happened to him.
Well, I suppose if you're listening through the series for the first time, chronologically, it should still make that same impact because you won't know that he comes back for another another 20 plus years.
Yeah, I know. I did say it works that way, but
Granted,
I don't know,
there will be some
awkward.
kids in the future who will hear, like, Jeff Lewis in the future before they hear First Love, which is like, that's weird.
That's such a weird thing to think about.
And they'll be like, oh, it's the episode with Jeff way back when. But
Oh, that's so weird to think. It's like how we knew Katrina and Eugene were going to end up together married, because we heard Eugene Returns before we ever heard Katrina's first episodes.
yeah, but this is different.
Yeah, this is really different. Because Katrina was a regular forever,
Exactly.
basically.
From the first episode, it was clear by the end of the first episode that they were intended to be in a relationship together, whereas Connie and Jeff, from the end of their first episode, it seemed like it was intended that they would never see each other again.
When I've listened to it twice before this review, the first time I was at school, I was just like sitting in the back of the library, working on my homework at a table, giggling to myself, because Connie's like in all this pain. I felt so terrible. She's like, I'm never gonna see him again, and I'm just giggling there, and I'm like, oh, don't worry, yes you will, OTP. And then today when I was listening to it, I was like cleaning up my room and stuff, and then he was like, can I kiss you and stuff? And then I'm just like, hold on, Jeff, save the romantics for another 20 years. And I'm listening to it, I'm like, where's all this stuff nowadays? Like, why can't he do this now? I want them to be together.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm sure it's coming.
I hope it does. Do you think they're actually going to end up together, though?
Yes, I do.
I'm hoping they do, because Connie hasn't had a lot of character development, so...
Yeah. Anyway, so to get back to my original point, yes, Jeff's family is clearly very rich, which, hey, another point in the bucket for Jeff. Interesting to point out that Connie was obviously a very busy child, because apparently she used to do softball, according to this episode, and cheerleading, according to Champ of the Camp. And she wore
dresses.
And ballet, according to Pink Is Not My Color. So that's like 3 sports, basically, right there.
Maybe she pulled an Olivia Parker and just did a new thing every week.
Maybe. So, yeah, there's a thread about this on the trivia page on Facebook going right now, which has kind of gotten out of control, as they basically all do with time. But it's really incredible when you think about how many times this topic has come up before with our main characters. Basically,
what topic?
Like of the episode of Christians and non-Christians dating, being unequally yoked. It's come up with basically all our main characters, because you've had Connie and Jeff, Eugene and Katrina, Jack and Emily, Jason and Tasha, Wooton and Victoria Jameson, and even Whit and some unnamed girl that he talks about in this episode, which we forgot.
And also you have Whit and Margaret Faye.
Yeah, but she was a Christian. This is... That's what the topic is about. That the episode specifically makes it clear, and Whit says he calls Margaret a Christian and says that their issues are not of Christian and non-Christian, but of two different worldviews within both being Christian. The episode makes it clear that the point of the theme is that it's intra-faith issues within the same faith for all three couples, because it's all a common theme across all of them. So that does not count. But yeah, here we have Whit and some unnamed girl, which we forgot to mention in Whit's lore episode. Oops. Should have been in there.
Whatever.
So yeah, it's crazy how many times it's come up. Which, I mean, I guess it's a good thing that it has, but it's just like, wow, that's a lot of couples for like all of our main characters. Whit, Connie, Eugene, Jack, Jason, Wooton. Yeah.
Donkey. Sorry.
Cheryl. Thank you. Cheryl McCormick. Thank you, past Devin.
Cheryl.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's crazy. Because I was looking it up. It really feels like Cheryl is in more episodes than 3. But evidently...
She's only in 3.
She's not. Yeah, remember? I even said...
She's in A is for Attitude. She's in this one.
And Go Ye Therefore when she first becomes a Christian.
She has to be in more than that.
I mentioned earlier, that's why before I was like, what's her name? She's in those 2 other episodes. And yeah, she's only in those 2 other episodes. And this one only.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I know. Connie must mention her more than that, but she only appears in 3 episodes. Yeah, so evidently the writers were not kidding when they said that it wasn't until Pennywise that they were able to finally create a steady female friend for Connie.
I'm still warming up to Penny.
And now that it's only been 5 years, 6 years.
Are you serious?
Yeah, well,
5 years since Green Ring Conspiracy?
Yeah, we're 6, I think.
It's been 5 albums.
Yeah, but lots of those albums only came out 1 album a year. There's only 1 album last year, 1 album the year before that.
I feel so old.
I know. Because 53 was in my Odyssey marathon, my 72-hour marathon fundraiser. And I'm pretty sure that was 2009 I did that.
Anyway.
Yeah. I have always really loved the bit where Jeff offers to go to church and pray and do whatever it takes. He doesn't care. And Connie says, you don't. And I need you to. As that line about, you can't do it for me, you have to accept him for you, has always stuck with me, and not just in a romantic context. But I think that's, whether, especially like when we're talking about, the church as a political structure, not as like, the actual like spiritual organization and collection, the body of Christ. When we talk about it as that, especially in a historical context and like forcing people to be Christians and stuff, it's like that's the thing that keeps coming back. You can't do it for me, you have to accept him for you.
That last scene is always, it's such a good scene that I just love it so much. And the thing about it is it's really hard to listen to. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's a really painful scene, and it's just such good voice acting. You can tell that everyone was putting their all into it. And something interesting in that book that Katie and Will wrote, he asked her what her least favorite episode was, and she said First Love. And I was like, what?
Oh, yeah, that's very funny.
She didn't even say First Love. She's like, oh, there's that one. I hate it. It's like Connie almost ends up with someone who's not a Christian. And I'm like, you don't know what his name is, and he might be your possible husband. Katie, no.
Yeah. So, yeah, as the episode ends, I cannot believe still that Paul McCusker brought back Jeff after this many years. He has the longest gap between appearances of any character ever on the show. He's followed in second place by Monty Whitaker Dowd, who last appeared in album 7 before reappearing in album 53, and Davey Holcomb, who first appeared in album 1 and then later in album 43. So yeah, Jeff went 624 episodes without appearing and 623 episodes without even being referenced whatsoever.
Well, if you're gonna leave, you might as well come back in style.
True. At your
And Jeff knows how to come
ex's
back
mother's
in
funeral?
style.
Is that what style is?
Wait, what?
I said at your ex's mother's funeral. Is that what style is?
Exactly. You should have just come in like on an airplane into the church during the funeral.
Well,
and been like, "Hey, Connie, I'm back. Let's get married."
It was the reception at Connie's house, but
I know.
Whatevs.
It would have left more of an impact if it was during the funeral.
And then after the episode, there's a bonus feature that shows some of the other romantic involvements that Connie's had over the years.
Can I just... This is one of my favorite bonus
Well,
features.
just a minute. Sorry, I'll just say. So it's cut
Okay.
Connie's romantic interests or involvements, not necessarily her interests, but it has Jeff from this episode, because there's clips for them. So Jeff, clip from this episode, Jimmy from Coming of Age, Judah from Back to Bethlehem, Isaac Morton. The clip's from Scales of Justice, but it's a really misleading clip because they have to use a clip of Rodney.
I'll get to that in a minute.
Rodney reading Isaac's note, which makes it sound like Rodney likes her. And then there's Mitch from Between You and Me.
Honestly, this is one of my favorite bonus things after an episode because, no offense to whoever cut it, but it's just so terrible in so many different ways. I know what they're trying to do, but I just listen to it and laugh because
Are you talking about the Rodney clip or the whole thing?
the whole thing, they make it sound like Connie's like chasing down all these different guys. And in reality, there were only like 2 guys in these clips that she actually liked.
Yeah.
Everyone else, she's just like,
Which is
okay,
just Jeff
you're way
and
too
Mitch.
young for me. Yeah, just Jeff and... Well, Jeff wasn't in the clips,
Yeah,
was
he was.
Oh. Well, I guess kind of 3. She kind of liked Judah a little bit.
Yeah, but
for the most
none
part,
of the romanticism
she didn't like
was
any of these guys,
reciprocated.
and they're just like going after her. And I like how they never do anything for any of the other characters. They just do it for Connie, involving like love interests. Like, I don't know. Maybe they knew even back then Connie was never going to get married, but
Well, I mean, how many could they put together for Eugene? You have,
so many.
Myth Smithhammer. You have Jesse
Smith-Hammer.
Morales. You have Katrina.
You have Katrina with a different voice actress.
Not scraping the bottom of the barrel there.
You have Bernard.
Use I Slap Floor.
Yeah, use ice slap.
Could-
Oh, they could actually do that.
Could you imagine if in this boat...
Hey, they get away with using a Rodney clip for Isaac. They could get away with I Slap Floor if they did one for Eugene.
Not only for this, they could have put one in this clip for Connie, too, from I Slap Floor.
They should have.
They could have used Poor Loser, where Bernard's like, just a moment, Eugene. I think Connie has a crush on me.
Let's just see how much worse we can make this bonus clip.
Yeah. And we have 2 little...
And we can use clips of her talking to, like, Wit and others. Like, when she's crying or something, be like, can I hug you? Just throw that in there.
Just how
Throw
out
that
of
in the
context can we make anything possible? Next thing you know, we're just going to be cutting clips of, like, Connie's individual words and splicing them together to say things.
And it's just like, please, Tom Riley, will you marry me at the Timothy Center? But
Oh. They also didn't put Jason in here from Love is in the Air, surprisingly.
oh yeah, they didn't. They should have. I think that the funny thing about it is they make it look like the Isaac clip is Rodney, but they actually could throw in a Rodney clip if they wanted to from Green Eyes and Yellow Tulips. So I've never understood that. It's like the Rodney clip, does that like symbolize both Rodney later on and Isaac at the same time?
Knocking out 2 suitors with 1 stone.
But the best part is, people are going to be totally misled. They're going to be like, oh, Rodney's going to fall for Connie hard eventually, and then they're going to get to album 12.
Especially because of
album 13. And then they'll be like, what? This isn't Rodney, this is Isaac.
Especially with the weird tone of voice Rodney's making because he's mocking Isaac.
But, like, if you listen to that without context, he sounds like totally infatuated, basically. And it is hilarious.
Or off his meds or something.
Yeah, or off his meds. But
anyways, we have 2 tidbits from the
you know what I mean, right?
Yeah. But yeah, if they included the Rodney clip, they could have included so many more borderline things in there that could have, this bonus feature could have been 10 minutes long. Anyways,
just have literally everyone in Odyssey who's ever appeared hitting on Connie.
Yeah.
Like Joanne's like, hey, Connie, want to go on a road trip? Okay. Throw that in there.
Okay, we have 2 clips from the official guide about this episode. The first, sound bites. The music for First Love was a complete departure from the normal Adventures in Odyssey style. Composer John Campbell built a specific theme and then created underscores and bridges from that theme. It was inspired, in part, by the music of composer and jazz artist Dave Grusin, born 1934. Previously, many cues could be easily interchanged between shows, and often were. From this point on, the bar had been raised, and most of the shows were approached with the same concept.
Can I just say that the theme from this episode is one of my favorite episode themes, like music-wise. Like, I know a bunch of other episodes where it's used. Like, it's used in the first one with the Miller family on Christmas. It's the theme in that one. And it's a theme in a bunch of... Yeah, that's what I meant. It's a theme in a bunch of other episodes, too, and I just kind of kept track of them mentally because I really like this song. What?
I was like, who are the Millers? And then you said Christmas. I figured it out. When you said Christmas, then I thought of Peace on Earth, and then I realized who you meant. Oof, the darkness. The light focus, light balance is so weird right now.
I can't see what you're talking about. Your Skype photo froze. I can still hear you, though.
Okay, and then the second little bit, my take, Paul McCusker. Though at first glance, First Love would seem to deal with the teen issue, I wasn't really writing it for them. I was thinking of the 8 to 12-year-olds. The idea that Christians shouldn't date non-believers had been instilled in me long before I thought much about dating, which made a big difference in my dating life. I remember thinking, and still believe, that it's important for Adventures in Odyssey to introduce our listeners to a biblical perspective on life issues before the kids are in a position to make choices. Or, as a pastor once said to me, the time to decide whether or not you're going to cheat on a test isn't when you're in the middle of a test you haven't studied for. You must decide cheating isn't an option long before the test comes along. All right. Final thoughts on this episode, Victoria?
I really like this episode a lot for lots of different reasons. I really like Jeff. If he never came back, I would probably be like, Jeff's okay, but now that he has come back, you kind of view this episode with new eyes, and yeah, I really, really like Jeff, even back here. If you just listen to this episode, he's still a pretty great guy. Has a good theme, good morals, it's presented really well, and I like Cheryl. It's hilarious that Steve Burton's in this.
Steve Burns.
That's what I said. And I'd say 5 stars. Also, the music's amazing. I love the music. I
think it's really interesting evaluating this episode now that, now that life expectancy and the pilot and the cure have come out. It's strange because this episode was a phenomenal standalone episode, just being in and of itself as a self-contained story and Jeff never coming back. Which isn't to say the episode isn't good now. The episode is still good, but it has definitely changed. That much is 100% certain. The perspective of the episode has changed in some ways that are good and in some ways that are bad. And overall, I'm not entirely sure if the episode has been diminished or not by the additional canon of having Jeff return.
Yeah, like that's what I said before, later. Right? Like that's what I was saying.
Yeah, there's definitely
before, or at least trying to.
The detraction of like, it wasn't final and things that, he ended up coming back and they got together anyways in the end. But on the other hand, not only is it, pretty obvious to recognize that that doesn't mean that they should have got together back then because Jeff needed to go through all these things, but it also ties in another lesson that has appeared multiple times on this show, which is about how sometimes we plant seeds in people's lives without realizing it that can come to fruition years and years later and we don't even know about it. We saw that with Agnes Rose Riley and Joanne Judith Woodston Allen. So many long names.
In the Pact.
Yes, in the Pact. And we saw it with John Avery Whitaker and Lieutenant Reginald Duffield in Operation Dig Out.
Return to Montego Point and Operation Dig Out. Both of them.
Yeah, but it was specifically the theme of
More
Operation
so the
Dig
second
Out.
one.
Yeah. So it's a topic that's appeared before, the idea, you plant seeds and then it's like nothing happened. I didn't even plant any seeds. I just, it was just this person and there was me and whatevs. And then years later you find out they had this enormous impact on their lives and possibly they became a Christian because of you. And this is now an addition to that collection of thematic episodes. Because that is...
But...
Yes?
Sorry, can I just interject? I like kind of... the way this is done more, because as the viewer, it's cool and stuff to hear someone's story, but it doesn't leave as much, it doesn't really stay with you as much if you hear from a person like right at that moment, it's their first episode they've ever appeared in or something like that. Like Operation Dig Out. He's like, oh yeah, you told me this stuff and years later I became a Christian. Like, that's still really great and stuff. But with this, it feels more like firsthand to you.
Yeah.
Because Jeff appeared all the way back in album 7. You never thought you were going to see him again. And then he turns up in album 57.
Yes.
So it's like 50 albums later.
49.
You never thought you were going to see this guy again. And he appears and he's a Christian. And he's like, I thought about what you said and stuff. And it's really great.
Yeah, it's definitely the best one because it's not like this little self-contained thing. We actually see it spread out even though we don't get the... middle story, although if Jeff is going to become a regular now, I'm sure we will get all the middle stuff eventually.
Yeah, which will be even better. Because, like, if you just listen to this one and you don't hear album 57 for a long time, you get thinking, like, oh yeah, she never ended up with him, it's a good lesson and stuff. And then it turns into an even better lesson because it's kind of double-sided. Mm-hmm. Plays with your expectations.
So I will... give the episode... I don't really have any complaints per se, but compared to the other ones I've given 5 out of 5 in the past, I don't think I have as much praise to sing about this one as them, so...
I'd say 4... I'm dropping mine to 4.8, because...
I'll go 4.5.
Yeah. I'm 4.8.
And
anyway,
that's that.
Good episode.
Yeah. So, Victoria, what are we doing next time?
We are doing a new segment that I came up with.
A new series. Ah! What is it?
Sorry, you cut out there. It is called Verses. And are we writing out the whole word verses, or is it just VS?
I haven't decided yet. I think I decided back when and I forgot.
Whatever it's called Verses, and it's comparing old episodes and remade episodes. And if you want to know what we mean by old and remade, watch the next episode and find out.
What are we doing specifically for the next episode, for our first Verses episode?
It is The Return of Harley, parts 1 and 2, versus The Boy Who Cried Destructo.
Yes. The Return of Harley, parts 1 and 2, is the favorite Harley episode, S in parentheses, for both of us. So that is what we are starting off our series with, comparing The Return of Harley to The Boy Who Cried Destructo, which is the remake of that episode from years later. So, that's what we'll be doing next time. So it'll be kind of like a review, but we won't be going into as much depth about the episodes. It'll be more about...
It's more of a compare and contrast.
Yeah, and which one do we think succeeded? Because it's versus, they're competing. Which one is the better version?
Ding, ding.
All right. On that note, I believe that's everything for this time. Thank you for joining us on our side of the YouTube. I've been Devin Francis, also known as Leonard Meltzner.
And my name is I don't know what my name is backwards. Erevditorovik. Also known as Echo. Or Koegi.
Okay.
Stop laughing at me. I can't even see you laughing, but I know you're laughing. I can hear little squeaking noises.
All right, and this has been the Adventures in Odyssey Oddcast.
Bye.
Goodbye.